unelected, largely unaccountable billionaires are getting special access to this incoming Trump administration and Senate Republicans and others. At the same time that the Republican Party actually just did something politically that was a big deal. They built and grew their support among working class, sometimes called blue collar Americans. And so this is an important story where politically the Republicans had good news. You could see that in the exit polls. We covered this economy election from election night on. But that political step was, by all accounts, Republican voters, observers, supposed to be matched by some sort of delivery mechanism for those working class Americans. So keep that in mind as you look at scenes like this, as the world's richest man, Elon Musk, makes this sort of big kind of hero's welcome entrance into the buildings and around the Capitol and the Senate, because he's holding private meetings with top Republicans. You could also see he's joined by a very successful, very wealthy businessman, Vivek Ramaswamy. MAGA figures that are heading up a group outside the government that's literally named after a commercial product that one of them's involved in that they say will help improve the government. So the self-dealing, in a sense, has already begun when it comes to branding. And they want to do enormous cuts, as much as hundreds or even $500 billion out of the annual budget if they could get Congress to agree. It's unclear how they would do this and what services or programs might be slashed for Americans in states, red, blue, and in between, and certainly in those working class areas where Republicans did improve their vote totals. We also don't know what rules they intend to test when you see headlines like this. And the DOGE plan that you see up top, that is a DOGE plan to reform government. That is one of Elon Musk's business ventures that he makes money off of. It has to do with cryptocurrency, but it's no different than saying, business-wise, the Tesla plan or the Coca-Cola plan. So again, buyer beware when the people telling you they're going to save you money are already using their new program to promote themselves and their own business interests. Now, the rules are designed in most government areas to avoid partisan purges of career workers when new administrations come in. So if one of the things they want to do is not only cut programs like health care or a safety net or money that might go to you or your parents, but they also want to try to cut down on the federal workforce, on public servants, well, it's not even clear how far they can get with that, again, unless they were able to change some pretty major laws. So it's more than just annual budgeting. As for Elon Musk, I'll tell you one thing. He may not have been in politics long enough to know that this is not helpful to the Senate Republicans he's meeting with. He has admitted all of this would cause pain.
We have to reduce spending to live within our means. That necessarily involves some temporary hardship, but it will ensure long-term prosperity.
Elon Musk there, Trump ally, is referring to decreasing government spending on certain things. He has not said it should reduce spending on the government money that goes to him, which we'll get to. He's not going to feel hardship. And when you look at all of this, there is a major conflict of interest here. In other words, you can try to track this story on one of two levels. The first level is how much should the government have cut out? And it's perfectly valid and often the position of more conservative politicians, Republicans, to cut government spending in some ways. You've heard that before. The second level is, who's doing this? And do you think it's going to be good for you as a taxpayer to have a Coca-Cola or Tesla or DOGE plan that's already self-dealing, overseen by someone who has all these conflicts of interest? Elon Musk controls companies that have ongoing contracts and taken a lot of money from 12 different federal agencies. Again, he has not publicly said that the reduction in spending should include reducing any of those agencies' money that goes to his companies, which enrich him, have helped, among other things, make him the richest man in the world. 11 agencies have oversight investigations into Musk's business. Now, I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. They are supposed to do that. There are regulators that deal with many different businesses. But now he is trying to kind of come through with the back door and oversee their funding, right? So that's a conflict. Musk is also talking to Republican leaders who have power potentially as well in a different mechanism over those investigations. Now, there is not current reporting, in all fairness, that these conflicts, that's a situation, have turned into some sort of active malfeasance or scandal. And after all, we're very new here. This DOGE thing, which you can think of as a Coca-Cola or Tesla plan, this thing's brand new. The meetings today are private and brand new. But the conflicts are already a problem. There's a company as well, Trump.org. You might recall, whatever you think about The whole year we lived through, there was a fair process with a jury and a system that found that was a company doing fraud. Donald Trump also pocketed millions in foreign payments from the first term. Again, a conflict of interest, something no other president in either party had done, because no other president insisted on trying to operate active businesses that took money from anywhere, let alone foreign governments. And then there's the second term issues. The New York Times has been reporting that basically, based on what happened in the first term, which had a lot of ethics problems and scandals, a lot of agency heads that Trump picked were pushed out and ultimately basically held to account in ways that he was not and lost their jobs. We did a big report on that heading into the election. And now they're planning fewer ways to have guardrails, which you can interpret as concern about the past scandals, that they just don't want to deal with the headache, or that they are basically saying it's open season for all kinds of people to use the government for personal gain. Again, that doesn't help workers. That doesn't deal with the price election, the inflation election we just went through. MAGA allies, meanwhile, big picture, separate from those Trump ethics issues, say they want to cut the safety net. And then they want to also shift resources by cutting the safety net, but then taking money from those programs and effectively over time shifting them to the wealthiest Americans through more millionaire and billionaire tax cuts. And so some of the final polls before the election did show, as I mentioned, Donald Trump ultimately edging out Harris by 7 points on handling the economy and, again, all the prices concerns. But these are the plans. We're past what I call that good news for Republicans in the campaign, and we're getting towards the governing. And Trump's bringing in these billionaires also directly in the administration. Musk wants to have it both ways. He wants to oversee government spending while still getting a lot of government spending, but not taking a kind of job, because he knows, he's a sharp, shrewd operator, that if he did what some of these folks are doing going into the second term, they would then be subject to even more rules and oversight, and they would be government employees. He's not doing that, but these others are. And so they may have their own billionaire ideas about priorities. But you have to keep your eye on what they're doing, not just on the branding, the Musk, Doge, Tesla government plans and the talk of saving you money, when the person doing that talk and the other billionaires seem to be pretty good at one thing: amassing their own wealth through any which way they have to, including the countries, often many countries that they deal with, government contracts, tax codes, and the rest. And if that's what they're known for, you have to ask, do you believe them and the incoming Trump administration that campaigns so much on working class values, that they are going to switch from what they've been doing their whole lives, amassing wealth for themselves, and suddenly put all of that effort to amassing what? Wealth for someone else? Wealth for you? And wealth for you at their expense?
One of the clarifying aspects of your introduction to this is the connection between the individuals who are now running the oversight of these programs and the government to fix it and to make it better, and how they are going to be impacted. So my question to Elon Musk is, so are you cutting back on your government contracts, the amount of government money that's being spent for your benefit, for your personal wealth and growth? In the programs that you're doing, you're trying to get to Mars. So do we, need to cut back on that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of waste in that program that you're collecting $1 billion check from, right? So that's the reality here for us. But the reality for him is, let's look at Medicaid and SNAP programs. Let's look at education and child care programs. Not the things that affect me, because I don't have any child I need to care for, and I damn sure are not on SNAP, right? That's not my issue. My issue is I collect $1 billion a month from what I'm doing. This family is collecting $100 a month for what they're doing. And so that's the balancing act that the Trump administration is going to have to confront. And the Republicans in the House and the Senate, Ari, who now manage all of that and in control of that, that's the governing part, right? We're going to have to realize that a lot of the programs they want to cut affect the people who live in the very red states and districts that they represent. Don't believe me. After the election, all these Republicans love putting up that big red map, how red the country was, right? Well, let's start cutting and see how much blood you take from those red districts in those red states.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, here's a New York Times report, and there have been many about this, basically saying Republicans are actually going to probably oppose some of these so-called, they called them, the Times called it Biden's triumphs. You can call it domestic spending. Trump supporters expressed concern about how the potential rollbacks of some of these laws, including green and other programs that basically did what you just mentioned, put funding into red districts, how that could affect job losses, hurt companies. Again, at the baseline level of the workers that we heard so much about in the election, not the billionaires who are going to get this tax windfall while they claim to oversee the government.
Keep in mind, guys like Elon Musk and even Vivek Ramaswamy, and certainly a lot of the folks who are coming into this administration have all been takers. They've never managed a government budget. They've never had to run a city. They've never had to manage a state and balance trash collection against educational programs and healthcare programs. You know, elected officials are elected to sit there and make those hard choices and explain to people why. So when Elon Musk said, yes, there will be pain associated, pain for who? Not you, bro. You're not feeling this. You know, you've never felt it. You have never felt what it's like to have a food stamp program cut and all of a sudden you can't shop where you wanted to shop or buy the food you need, or have your health care taken from you or reduced, and then wonder whether or not you'll be able to continue the level of medication that you have for your mom or yourself. You've never had those concerns. So why are you the one making those choices? You're unelected. It's not even a real department. It's all made up. This is voodoo BS. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of people with Republican backing and support who are going to be hurt by this.